Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the third eagle of the apocalypse and the co-prophet of these end times. Today I have the very unpleasant task of calling out one of the more popular personalities on YouTube, and that would be Pastor Paul Begley. And the reason is because he is totally misinterpreting Jeremiah 50 verses 41 through 46, which he says are being fulfilled now in Iraq with this group called ISIS approaching Baghdad. And he is totally mistaken. Jeremiah 50 is not about the fall of Baghdad, it's about the fall of the United States. And Jeremiah 50 verse 44 is about our own president, Barack Obama. The reason it's chapter 50 is because it's about the 50 United States. And the reason it's verse 44 is because it's about our 44th president. Now, Paul Begley seems to think that it's about Prime Minister Al-Maliki. And what he is doing is feeding you pillows and cushions. He does not want you to understand the very serious prophecies of Jeremiah 50. Jeremiah 50 is the same as the prophecies in John about the fall of Babylon. What Jeremiah calls the daughter of Babylon, that is the United States, is the same as the whore of Babylon in the book of Revelation.
But as you're looking at what's going on in Bible prophecy, you can see that in Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 41 through 46, it's almost like reading what has been happening in the last week. And that is these people from the north, which would be these radical Sunnis or ISIS, comes down from the northern part of Iraq and takes over Mosul.
Are you serious? What? ISIS is found in Jeremiah 50 verse 41? Behold, a people shall come from the north, and a great nation, and many kings shall rise from the ends of the earth. Well, at least Pastor Paul is correct in saying that Jeremiah 50 verse 41 is an end times prophecy. However, I really would not consider ISIS a great nation. And where are the many kings from the ends of the earth? The fact is, Jeremiah is prophesying about Russia. They are the great nation from the north. And when they attack the United States, many kings from the ends of the earth will support them. That's why the scarlet beast has 10 horns in Revelation.
Scriptures tell us that this group is vicious. They are cruel. They will show no mercy. Are you serious?
Paul Begley, are you serious? Now you're saying ISIS is also found in verse 42? They shall take the bow and the shield. They are cruel and unmerciful. Their voice shall roar like the sea, and they shall ride upon horses like a man prepared for battle against you, O daughter of Babylon. Well, yes, Pastor Paul is correct. ISIS is cruel and unmerciful. But what do you suppose life will be like in a FEMA camp run by the communist Chinese or the Russian communists? If you would like to find out, read Alexander Solzhenitsyn's A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich or his Gulag Archipelago. Life under communism will not be kind and gentle. And that's what Jeremiah is prophesying about. He's not prophesying about ISIS. He's prophesying about Russia winning World War III.
The king of Babylon hath heard a report of them, and his hands have waxed feeble. That's Maliki, basically. He hears what's coming out of the north.
Are you serious? Maliki is the king of Babylon? The king of Babylon has heard the report of them, and his hands are grown feeble. Anguish has taken hold of him, pangs as a woman in labor. Yes, I suppose Maliki is in Baghdad right now, wringing his hands, probably more afraid of losing his job than the ISIS people, but that's not who Jeremiah is talking about. He is talking about President Barack Obama and what his reaction will be when his aides tell him that the United States has been attacked by Russia. He is the one who will tremble in fear. And now the next verse, verse number 44, in chapter number 50 of Jeremiah, is one of the most important in all of end times Bible prophecy. It's one of the very few verses that is repeated almost word for word. It's the same verse as found in the previous chapter, chapter number 49 of Jeremiah, verse number 19. Most Bible scholars recognize that that chapter and verse describes King Nebuchadnezzar. And this chapter and verse, 50 verse 44, is an end times chapter and verse related to the previous chapter and verse about King Nebuchadnezzar. And King Nebuchadnezzar is a precursor not of Maliki, but of Barack Obama. Now, if Paul Begley had made only one video about ISIS and Maliki, or if this passage from Jeremiah were not so extremely important, especially regarding the United States, I probably would not be doing this video. And now, Pastor Paul, would you like to read the next verse, verse number 44?
Behold, he shall come up like a lion from the swelling of Jordan unto the habitation of the strong.
Now, Pastor Paul, do you really think Al-Maliki is like a lion that comes up from the swelling of the Jordan? Jeremiah is not talking about the Prime Minister of Iraq. He is prophesying about President Barack Obama. And this is one of the most important verses in all of end times Bible prophecy, as I said before. Let me go through this word for word. Behold, he shall come up like a lion from the swelling of the Jordan. Notice Jeremiah says, like a lion. That's because Obama is the leopard. And of course, a leopard is like a lion. In fact, the word leopard means spotted lion. Leo means lion. Pard means spotted. And from the swelling of the Jordan is very interesting. It refers to when the Jordan River floods the woods near the bank of the river. And when that happens, wild beasts come up out of the woods and they retreat to drier land. And lions are included. And therefore, this lion, that is Barack Obama, who comes up out of the flooded woods, is out of his natural habitat. And I think that does describe Obama quite well. To the strong and the beautiful. The strong and the beautiful refers to the United States. He has been chosen by God to lead our nation. For I will make him run suddenly upon her. In other words, Barack Obama came out of nowhere, as I'm sure you remember. And notice God is the one who causes this to happen. And who shall be the chosen one whom I may appoint over her? Now, Pastor Paul seems to think that this is someone different.
And who is the chosen man that I may appoint over her? Talking about the city of Baghdad. Who is going to be the leader after Maliki is removed?
Verse number 44 is not about Maliki or Maliki's successor. First of all, it's all about one person. And to understand verse 44 in chapter 50, we look at verse number 19 in chapter 49 because it's the same verse. And in the previous chapter, it's about King Nebuchadnezzar. And King Nebuchadnezzar was appointed by God over the Israelites, just as Obama has been appointed over us. And we must accept the yoke of Obama, just as God told the Israelites they had to accept the yoke of King Nebuchadnezzar. Who shall be the chosen one, whom I may appoint over her? God has chosen Obama to be our leader. For who is like to me? Who is going to stand up to my judgment? And who shall bear up against me? And who is that shepherd that can withstand my countenance? Almighty God has made this decision. And he also makes the decision in the next verse, verse 45, where Jeremiah prophesies the destruction of the daughter of Babylon, the destruction of the United States.
Therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord, that he hath taken against Babylon and his purposes, that he hath purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out.
That's the Kurds. The least of the flock shall draw them out.
Now wait a minute, Paul. The Kurds are not fighting against Babylon or Baghdad. They're fighting against ISIS. That he has purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. And this is not Babylon, this is the United States. Surely the least of the flocks shall draw them out. The least of the flocks are not the Kurds. Those refer to the smaller communist countries like North Korea and Cuba. They are going to do a tremendous amount of damage to the United States. Of a truth, their habitation shall be destroyed with them. The United States will be destroyed, and that is what Jeremiah is prophesying about here in his chapter number 50. Chapter 50, verse 46. At the noise of the taking of Babylon, the earth is moved, and the cry is heard amongst the nations.
Jeremiah 50, verse 46. At the noise of the taking of Babylon, just at the sound that Babylon may be going to fall, the earth is moved, and the cry is heard among the nations.
So I guess Pastor Paul is saying that even the threat of ISIS taking Baghdad is a fulfillment of Jeremiah, and that is nonsense. The great prophet is talking about the destruction of the United States, and that's why the earth will be moved when Russia uses weapons of mass destruction. That will cause earthquakes. There won't be any earthquakes in Iraq if by some chance ISIS takes Baghdad. And the whole earth cries out. That is very similar to what John says in Revelation when the whore of Babylon is burned with fire in 1 hour by the scarlet beast. All the merchants of the world weep and mourn, which, by the way, shows how ridiculous it is to say that the whore of Babylon is the Vatican. Do you really think that if the Vatican were burned with fire in 1 hour, all the merchants of the world would weep and mourn? Of course not. Jeremiah and John are both talking about the downfall of the whore of Babylon and the daughter of Babylon. And if you would like more information about my ministry here on YouTube, please visit my new ThirdEagleMedia.com website, and if you feel so inclined, click on the PayPal button.